Hey everyone, Shim here, with a little bit different video than I normally do. Usually you'll see me put some racing content up on the screen and just do a voiceover, but considering that I've been doing a bit more of my YouTube content in the live streaming space over the last couple weeks, and I hope to pump out a few more videos, I thought it was a good time to share with you all a walkthrough of my rig and a walkthrough of my setup. Just if anyone was curious as to what I'm running, and if someone's looking for some suggestions at what they want to do to enhance their sim racing experience. Hopefully this gives them at least a little bit of inspiration, a couple ideas maybe, and yeah, just wanted to share with you what I have, and hopefully it inspires you to get something of your own. So without further ado, let's hop over into the rig area and show you what I got. First things first, let's take a look at the PC itself. Currently I'm running an RTX 3060 Ti with a Ryzen 7 5700X CPU. I've got 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM running at 3200 megahertz, and I've got solid state hard drives to store all my games in my operating system. I built this PC myself about 6 or 7 years ago, and I've just been upgrading it ever since. Current components aren't top of the line by any means, but they suit me well for my needs and help me get fairly steady frame rates when I'm racing. Next, let's move into the general peripherals. I've got a Corsair K35, I believe is the name of this one, mechanical keyboard. It's just got some simple backlighting that's in red. Red's my favorite color, so I didn't need anything more advanced than that. Then I have my Qatar Corsair wireless mouse. I've really enjoyed moving to a wireless mouse, especially when sim racing. It allows me to get the mouse a little bit further away from the PC, and especially when I'm sim racing and I don't have my desktop right in front of me, it really helps to be able to pull this away a little bit further away from where the receiver is. Of course, I've got my Bochi the Rock mouse pad that a friend got for me in Japan. As anyone knows, anime girls help you get at least 2/10 on track. When it comes to my monitors, my main racing monitor is this ultra-wide MSI monitor. It's got 1 millisecond of response time, and it is 3440 by 1440p. So it's not 4K, but in my opinion, it doesn't really need to be. As long as I get a good field of view, and as long as I'm getting a good frame rate, that's really what I care about most when it comes to my racing experience. I also have this simple 1080p monitor that I've had for a long time. It has served me well. I've had this since I've got my PC, so it's nothing crazy. It just helps me have a second monitor when I'm streaming or when I am trying to create content. I also show my little my little camera up here. It's just a 720p camera that I use for live streaming. It's nothing crazy, and I hope to upgrade it eventually, but it's what I have and it works. Second thing that I forgot to mention here is my headset as well. I am currently running a HyperX Cloud 2 headset. This is the second pair of HyperX Cloud 2s that I've had. I've been really happy with the product as a whole, but I think the next time I get a headset, it's going to be wireless, because this cable gets so tangled, and I'm almost embarrassed to show that. It is so incredibly tangled, and it is an absolute mess, but that's what I have to work with here. Poor cable management and a dream. Last and definitely not least in my peripheral section here is my Secret Labs Titan gaming chair. This is what I use when I play any other games other than racing games, and it's also what I use when I am working at my PC, making videos, or checking my emails, you name it. This is my normal daily driver, seat. But as you can maybe see behind me here, that's where the really good stuff happens. When it comes to the rig itself, I'm running everything on a Track Racer rigid 80/20 aluminum rig. Now, when I originally started sim racing, I was using a Logitech G920 wheel and pedals. And I actually got the rigid rig while I was still using the G920. I figured it would have been a better upgrade to get the rigid rig first before getting a better wheelbase, because I'd rather have an underpowered wheelbase on a rigid rig than have an overpowered wheelbase on my desk. So that's the path I took to upgrading. Now, it depends on, I guess, what you upgrade to. Some people can use direct drive wheels still on their desk if they're using maybe a lower powered model, but I wanted to upgrade to something a bit more powerful. So let's look a little bit closer at what I'm running and show you guys what I'm working with. The wheelbase itself is the Moza R9. It's got 9 Newton meters of peak torque. Obviously, that's what the 9 stands for. And I've been incredibly happy with it so far. It's got just enough force that I feel like I can actually, use all of the 9 Newton meters of torque that this wheel has, but it's not so heavy that I feel like I'm struggling every time I go to do some sim racing. I've got weak little noodle arms, and this thing is just about perfect for me at this moment. Before we move up to the wheel itself, I just want to take a brief detour and show you my my pedal set. So when I upgraded to the R9, I also upgraded my brake and my gas pedal to the Moza ecosystem, as well. And I have to say, out of all of the upgrades that I made with my rig, I think this right here single-handedly was the most important. And not so much in the throttle category. That one is great, it works well, it's functioning as intended, but where the real magic is this load cell pedal. This load cell brake pedal has, in my opinion, been the single most important upgrade that I've made for my rig. Now, you'll see a lot of people say that it doesn't matter what type of equipment you have when you are sim racing. You can be just as fast on a G920 as you can with, a top of the line wheel and pedals. I think that is true up to a certain extent, but there are some upgrades that will provide you more benefit than others, and you will see pace advantages from. And this load cell pedal, I believe, is one of them. It provides you so much more accuracy in your braking motions. And for me personally, I saw easily a half a second improvement immediately when moving to this load cell pedal. Now, this is the Moza SRP. I should have maybe mentioned that right off the bat. This is the Moza SRP pedal set. You can see it's maybe a little dirty because of my dog. He sheds all over the place. But I want to note that I did have one issue with my load cell about two and a half months after I got this system. I noticed that I was getting random inputs on my braking motion when I was using the gas pedal. And it seemed like any jostle in the rig itself, my rigid rig, would trigger this load cell to engage. Now, come to find out that my original load cell that came with my SRP pedals, the connections to it were frayed. Now, let's move in a little bit here and see if we can see it. It's a little bit dark, and you probably can't see it, but the cable that comes from the load cell itself comes down underneath this pedal. It's almost in a pinch point there. And I think that really comes down to a bit of a poor design decision from Moza, that the cable connection would be in such a pinch point. But I want to note that, because even though I did have that issue, that was an issue I had with these pedals to start, Moza was incredibly quick to get back to me after I provided some documentation showing that it was broken, and they sent me a replacement part for free. So I was really, really happy with Moza's quick response for that, and they were able to get me a replacement part within a couple weeks. Now, sometimes that doesn't always work the best because you might be within the middle of a season of a league that you might be doing, or if you're like me, you really want to race every day if you can. Well, I did have to take a break from racing. Luckily, I was already taking a break from racing at that time due to some leg surgeries, some knee surgeries. But yeah, for me, it didn't impact me too much, and I was able to get a replacement fairly quickly. But for others, maybe that 1 to 2 weeks, that might be a bigger deal for you when it comes to your sim racing hobby. But I think the quick customer service, and they shipped the part as quickly as they could, and it got to me, and it was fairly easy to install a new load cell. So yes, I did have an issue with these. They resolved it fairly quickly, and I've been happy ever since. So now let's move up into what I think is the most visually appealing part of any sim racing setup, and that is the wheel. I'm using the Moza CSV2 wheel. I've been incredibly happy with this wheel from an all-around sim racing standpoint. I race a variety of different racing games in a variety of different racing disciplines, and while this wheel may not be perfect for any one of those disciplines, it's adequate for every single one of them. I've got plenty of different buttons that I can map here on the wheel. I've got all these normal buttons here. I can push down the brake bias and traction control buttons. I can push down the menu buttons, the glance buttons, and those are all usable buttons that I can map on my wheel. I've got the dual hand clutch paddles. I don't usually use the clutch myself. I usually map one of these to clutch just so I can have it, and then I map one of these to handbrake, so I don't really use the dual clutch setup there. It's got magnetic shifter paddles. Let's move over to the other one, show you that. Been really happy with the shifts. It's incredibly crisp, it's clean. You always know when you're going to get an engagement, so very happy with my shifter pedals. That's especially considering I moved from a G920 up to this Moza. These are by far superior to what I had on the G920. And I even have these little monkey switches here that allow me to do directional movements. I can map these to my menu directional pad buttons. I can map it to glance. So I have this one mapping to looking right or looking left, looking behind. And then I can even map these little rotary switches to, it says brake bias and traction control on here, but you can really map these to anything if you want. I usually keep it to brake bias and traction control because that's what it says, and that's what I'd normally want to, that's normally what I'd want to be changing, but you can really map it to anything you want. We also here, you can't really see it, have an RPM indicator lights here at the top, which in most games, it'll automatically sync up with the Pit House software, these RPM lights with whatever game you're playing. There are some games where you have to manually go in and set up the RPM lights, like Forza, for example. You have to go into the settings and specifically enable and set up the RPM lights here on this wheel. But it's a fairly straightforward process, and there's how-to guides online on how to do that. So yeah, this wheel, been incredibly impressed with it. Really happy using it in any discipline of racing that I might need it for. Like I said, it's maybe not the best for any one particular discipline, but it works well for all of them. So last but definitely not least, I just wanted to share how I set up my racing rig when I'm actually racing, because you may have noticed earlier that my normal setup, I have the rig actually pulled back behind where I normally sit in my Secret Labs chair. But when I want to do sim racing, I've got my rigid rig on some caster wheels, and I move it into location in front of my desk. My rigid rig slides right onto the space of my desk there. I move my ultra wide monitor forward, and then I angle my camera and everything off to the side there so you can see my face and a little bit of my wheel without seeing the edge of my ultra wide monitor. I also have a little TV tray right here that I have my mouse and my keyboard on, so that if I'm playing a game like Assetto Corsa Competizione and I need to use my mouse and my keyboard to type in a server name or anything, I have that right here, easy to access, and I don't need to do any finagling of trying to lean forward and go onto my desk to try to find where my keyboard's at. Everything's just right there, easy for me to use, and I can almost use it as a button box there. So that's how I normally have my sim racing rig set up, and that's how I do my racing. Anyway, folks, thank you for joining me today in my walkthrough of my setup. Hopefully that gives you maybe some ideas of how you can incorporate sim racing into your own environment at home. I know this is maybe a little bit unorthodox. I don't have a standalone location for my sim racing rig, but then again, maybe you don't either, and you're looking for a way to keep your sim rig a little bit mobile, but you want to still have high quality. And while this is maybe no means the highest quality gear that you can possibly get, it's it's maybe better than the average, and it's set up in a way that's easy and repeatable and works for me, and maybe something like this might work for you. But if you do have any further questions regarding my setup, or maybe you're looking for some advice on how to get into sim racing yourself, and maybe what's the best entry-level option for you, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I'm happy to provide any assistance that I possibly can. Again, I'm by no means an expert, but I've done a lot of research into this, and I know a lot of other people who've used different ecosystems and have used different products, and they can tell me their experiences as well. So I've got a network of friends that I can count on for reliable and accurate user experience data, and I'm happy to pass that on to anyone who might be interested in getting into sim racing themselves. So anyway though, folks, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you like this video. If you like what I'm doing here, again, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really does go a long way to help the channel, and please tune in for some more content in the near future. Anyway guys, my name is Shim. Thank you for joining. Hope you have a nice day. Peace. Where would any sim racer be without their puppy dog mascot? Mastacholi, Mastacholi. Who's a dog? Mastacholi. He just got himself a little bit of a doggy surgery, so he has to wear the doggy diaper shirt. But now he's being a lump, and he's being a good boy. Isn't that right, buddy? That's a good boy. Yes, that's a good boy. Dad, stop pestering me. Stop pestering me. Oh, buddy.